the policy behind this is that there should be equal distribution of the wealth. The person who is holding a lot of wealth, who is earning much more, he is taxed more, and the person who is not earning that much, he has to pay very less tax. And so that taxation is a rule, and the policy is equal distribution of the wealth. You understood now difference between policy and rule? Policy is something, ideas that guides the rule making authority, and rule is made to implement the policies. So similarly here, we will be discussing first about the naval policies. This naval policy of Chhatrapati Shivaji, it's very elaborate. There is a lot of elaborate discussion that is given in the Adnyapatra. We have already studied Adnyapatra, which is written by Ramchandra Panta Amatya, who had served under different Chhatrapatis, starting from Shivaji onwards. And in that, he elaborates the naval policy, that is a guiding principle behind the building of the navy. Now, you know, a little bit of background I should tell you before that. Shivaji has started his experiment of Swarajya in the Pune and surrounding area, and later on, after he defeated Afzal Khan, that was the first major invasion to Chhatrapati Shivaji's Swarajya. He conquered Konkan because defeat of Afzal Khan has increased his confidence. And now his Swarajya has touched the sea coast. Adil Shahi was already on the decline. And with this conquest of Konkan, he came in contact with the naval power like Portuguese, British, and Siddhi. Do you remember Siddhi? Very interesting people, who came all the way from Africa, and then they become a very important people in the Indian politics of the medieval period. They acted as a kind of mercenaries, and they were very loyal, very strong, and they were employed as a bodyguard first. But later on, they started influencing politics as well. So the Siddhi, they had their fort at Zanjeera. If you remember, Sambhaji had a very long drawn conflict with the cities of Zanjeera, and he in fact could not conquer Zanjeera, and it was later on conquered by Peshwa. Well, so this Chhatrapati Shivaji, he came in contact with these three naval power mainly. If you study the medieval Indian history, you will always understand that Indian ruler, even the mighty Mughals, they always remain weak on the sea. Even the Mughal who were at the during the zenith of power, even during the period of Shah Jahan and Aurangzeb, if they want to sail in the sea, let us say pilgrimage, a Muslim pilgrimage used to go to Mecca and sail from Surat. They has to take permission from Portuguese, the letter of sanction, and for that they have to pay some fee. So the reason behind this is that Indian ruler, they could not build strong navy. That remains a fact for variety of reason. But as Shivaji came in contact with these people, Portuguese, British, and Siddhi, he felt the need that we should also have a strong navy. Because very important reason behind this is that Siddhi, who was very strong on sea, he had a very strong fort, Zanjeera. We have already discussed Zanjeera, which was a very difficult fort to conquer. And he will raid the Shivaji's territory, and then he will withdraw to either to Zanjeera or withdraw to his ship. And on ship, the Marathas did not have a very strong ship. Even if you are strong on the land, it's very difficult to fight with someone who will raid your territory and withdraw into the ship. You cannot attack the ship unless you have your own ship. So now Shivaji, he built a chain of forts on the coast, and the rocks and the creek, they were very effectively used by Shivaji to build a different kind of forts, and those were used for sheltering of the ships as a naval stronghold. When the sea is rough, you should not sail into the sea, but you should come to the creek, you should come to the coast and put your ship in such a manner that it doesn't get destroyed for the by the storm. That is called, creek. That is a narrow passage between the two rocks on the sea coast. Now, from Adhyapatre, we understand this naval policy of Chhatrapati Shivaji, and Ramchandra Panta Amatya, he writes that Navy is an independent limb of state. It is very important, and this I have already told you, as the king's position of the land depends on the strength of his cavalry. Cavalry is very important. Yesterday, in yesterday's lecture only, I think we have discussed, or on Sunday's lecture probably, we have discussed how what is the different role of infantry and cavalry. Infantry is mostly used for defensive purpose, and cavalry is used for mostly offensive purpose if you want to conquer the land. uh, then he writes that the ship should be well equipped with brave and efficient fighter, gun, matchlock, and ammunition. And he also says that the ship should not be too big or too small. If it is too big, it becomes difficult to maneuver. It cannot go into the shallow water, and if it is too small, obviously it won't be able to carry people and man and material. Well, and then he further elaborates every unit should have 5 Gurab and 15 Galbats. Now, I have tried to search what is the meaning of Gurab and 15 Galbats, sorry, Gurab and Galbat. But what I understood is these are the different kind of ships, and within the Galbat also there are different kinds. So we can understand that the Gurab was a bigger ship and Galbat were a relatively smaller ship. And then he further writes that 200 ships made one Subha. As on the land, there will be a division of the kingdom into the Subhas and further into the district. Similarly, the naval administration also 200 ships combinedly it made one Subha, that is one bigger unit. And it is stated that under Chhatrapati Shivaji there were two Subhas. That means he almost had near about 400 ships, small and bigger. And the these two units combinedly known as Sarsubha. That is a kind of nomenclature that is used for this ship. Now, from where the expenses of the ship, this naval expenses of the navy should come, that is also mentioned by Sabasad, and he says that. Sorry, in Adnya Patra by Ramchandra Amatya, and he says that revenue of a particular territory should be assigned for the maintenance of the navy. Navy will be stationed at the ports, but the income that is coming from the port, Navy should not take it. The local people should not take it, because if the navy has to survive on the income that is coming from the ports, it's quite possible that naval officer may try to exploit the merchants that is coming to the port, and he may increase the taxation on the merchants, and that will lead to the unnecessary harassment of the merchants. So Ramchandra Panta Amatya is quite particular that the king should try to encourage the um, the merchants, encourage the trade. Trade is very important for the flourishing of the kingdom, and the trade should be encouraged and protected. The ship should sail out in the sea, and they should keep watch on the enemy. That is the instruction he gives. And nowadays we might find it a bit offensive, but looting enemy territory was quite natural during those days in medieval period. And Ramchandra Panta Amatya writes that by seeing an opportunity, our naval forces should attack the enemy territory and loot it to earn income. In fact, loot was considered as one of the source of income during those days. Well, now, what kind of policies should be followed towards the merchant ship? That also Ramchandra Pandamatya write. And he writes very clearly that merchant ships and the coolies who are going for fishing in the sea, they should not be troubled. They should be protected from any trouble. The ships who are moving in your area of influence in the sea, you are near the coast, you have your area of influence, you are master of the particular area of the sea, and any merchant who is traveling through that sea, they should obtain permission after paying certain fees. And if the ship of any merchant is moving without permission, he should be inspected and fined. There are incidences, there are episodes of confiscation of the Portuguese ships by the Marathas. Then after the ship needs to buy food or any other goods from the coastal area. The ship will go to the coastal area, and then they will go to the bazaar market, and they will buy the necessary thing. For example, wood was very important, otherwise there will be no cooking of food. So here also Ramchandra Panta Amatya writes that they should obtain permission only, and after that only they should be allowed to purchase from the market. So the quite strict control was maintained on the foreign merchants and foreign ship. But apart from that, he writes that the foreign merchant should not be unnecessary trouble, but depending on his position, that is obviously wealth, how much ships he have under his command, under his control, or owned by him, he should be respected depending on his position. And there should be all out effort that this foreign merchant should be encouraged to trade with our people, because if they are coming and buying certain goods from our people, that will lead to the prosperity of our people. And similarly, if they sell certain goods, our people, even the king, can have access to the certain goods that are those are not produced in our own country. Now, during the naval engagement, when you are fighting against enemy, what kind of precautions you should be taking? He writes that our ships should be maneuvered in such a manner that you are taking advantage of the wind speed and not an enemy taking an advantage of the wind speed. For example, if you are sailing against the wind speed, you have to put a lot of effort, because during those days there was no steamer, and it will be with the help of the oar that the people will be propelling the ships forward. So if you are propelling against the wind speed, that takes a lot of energy. But if you are with the wind speed, the wind speed will propel your ship further. You can also use the mast, the long cloth that is used for propelling the ship forward. And he says ki by chance, if the things are happen in such a way that the wind speed is against you, then you should not engage into the naval engagement. You should, on the other hand, withdraw to the safety. So, like Shiva, the Adnya Patra are believed to be indicator of Shivaji's thought. What Shivaji thought and what he ordered the people from time to time, that is believed to be written in the Adnya Patra. So we can understand from this that Shivaji was very particular that men are not to be lost. You should not engage into the naval fight if the odds are against you. Then he also says that even if the enemy is willing to surrender, don't go very suddenly to the close to the enemy. It could be a trap. He might be pretending to be defeated, pretending to be willing to surrender, but suddenly if you go closer, he might suddenly attack you. So you should be very careful, and keep your fire from the distance. Fire on it from the distance. Keep him troubling, and until unless you are pretty sure that he is no more in a position to do any harm to you, then only you should go and capture those sheep, right? Life of sailor is not to be risked at any cost. Well, then about sheltering of the ship, see, what we are discussing is now the general policies, which were the kind of guidelines given by Shivaji, and we understand it through Ajna Patre. Sheltering of the ships, he says that the rainy season, during the rainy season, generally there will be storm. So 1 or 2 weeks before the storm start, you should take your ships to the shelter, and it should not be done at the same port every year, because there could be a lot of trouble. Because when the sailors and soldiers, they stay at one place, they will obviously go out, start troubling the people. They may snatch somebody's wood, or cut somebody's tree, or steal somebody's goat, or a hen, and cook it and eat it. The soldiers, they generally, young people, and staying in a group, they are having a lot of energy, so it might create trouble for the people. So that is the one reason that the sheltering of the ship should not be done at the same port. Another reason is that if you continue to shelter your ship at the one port every year, the enemy will get all the information about your movement, and it's quite possible that his spies will tell the enemy about the weaker point of your sheltering ships, and there could be an act of sabotage. They may attack you and destroy your ship. So it should be kept at the different places every year. There should be a sea fort. Shivaji has constructed sea forts. So near the forts, you should keep your ships, so that in case of certain trouble, people can take shelter in the port. And enemy, forts generally, they will be well equipped with cannons and men. So enemy will not dare to attack your ships, which are kept near the forts. And this sheltering should be done inside the creek, so that your ships are safer from the storm. And whole fleet should not be kept at one place. It should be distributed at different places. For example, in case of accident like fire and all, your whole fleet will not get destroyed, and also enemy attack, you can, at least the portion of your ship will be safer at the different places. There should be night patrolling on the ship as well as on the creek surrounding the ship. Necessary supply should be there at the camp and fort. Before the rainy season, the forts should be well equipped with all the supply and food, so that the sailors who are coming for stationing there during the rainy season, they are getting adequate supplies. The wood that is required for the navy should be cut only after permission. You should not just go and cutting the wood. Shivaji was very particular that the trees that is nurtured and planted by the farmers should not be cut by the sailors. And if it is very necessary that we need wood for cooking food and for a different reason, if it is very necessary, then the old tree which is no longer live, that should be cut, and only after taking permission from the farmer and after paying him compensation. That is what he writes in the Ajna Patra. So these were the general guiding principle that is mentioned in the Ajna Patra, and then beginning was 1657, when that was in fact, before Afzal Khan War. Afzal Khan War took place in 1659, and before that Shivaji conquered Kalyan Bhiwandi, that is the area of Adil Shahi. In fact, it was this attack on Kalyan Bhiwandi that has provoked Adil Shahi Darbar to send Afzal Khan against Shivaji. And but with this conquest in 1657, Kalyan Bhiwandi, his border touched sea, and he made a very good use of geography, like the coastline of Konkan. There were many creeks where the ships can be sheltered and protected from the sea storm. On the rock, he built a naval stronghold, and in 1657 itself, immediately after the conquering of these areas, Shivaji started ship manufacturing. Probably he was quite ahead of his time, it seems to be. And to build the ships, he employed Portuguese people, and it is reported that near about 300 Portuguese they were working for Shivaji, and he declared that these ships will be used against Siddhi. But the Portuguese, they were dominating the sea, and they were quite uncomfortable with the growing naval power of the Marathas. So it is stated that Vijray, Vijray is nothing but viceroy. So viceroy, the Portuguese vice of Goa, in 1658, he ordered that all Portuguese working under the Indian ruler like Shivaji, Bijapur, and Mughal, they should immediately go back to Portugal. And because obviously he did not want that the Indian ruler should build strong navy. Portuguese were definitely quite ahead, well trained to build the ships. And when this order came, the Portuguese who were working for Shivaji, they one night, secretly they left this Shivaji's place, and they went to Vasai and Bombay. Vasai was Portuguese fort, and Bombay was British fort. And because Portuguese, they feared that though Shivaji is saying that these ships are being built to fight against Siddhi, it's quite possible that once they have ship, they may fight against us as well. And but by the time they left, nearly 20 ships were constructed under the Portuguese guidance. And teak wood was used for the construction of the ship, because teak wood is having a peculiar characteristic that teak wood doesn't get spoiled in the water, and at the same time it doesn't corrode the nail. You have to put iron nail while building the ship. And if the nail, it's very interesting, if the nails are put in the nailed into the hammered into the teak wood, it doesn't get corroded. I am not experienced it, I just read it and I'm just telling you this. Well, in 1667, as the trade have started under Portuguese, Shivaji continued with whatever he could do to build navy. Portuguese, they expressed fear that Shivaji's naval power is growing, and while conquering this coastal area of Konkan, Shivaji effectively made use of his newly built navy. Uh, Ships were beginning to be built at places like Kalyan Bhivandi, Panvel, Kulaba, Vijaydurg, and Malwan. And in 1664, Shivaji started construction of the coastal fort, that is Sindhudurga. And according to Chandragupta Bakhar, Chitragupta Bakhar, there were certain Portuguese who were also working for the construction of this sea fort. Construction of the sea fort is very difficult. You have to put certain thing in the plinth so that it doesn't get washed away. You cannot construct the plinth normally that we construct when we construct house outside. Only the cement and all that may get washed away. You need a certain, like, you have to use a lot of mercury. What I heard is, like, Zanjeera, when the Zanjeera was built, a lot of mercury was put so that the foundation of the fort remain stronger in spite of the water constantly striking against it. So Portuguese experts were employed by Shivaji. That is what Chitragupta Bakhar writes. And now, as Shivaji developed his navy, what were the different type of ship? Generally, the ship with a round build. Round means not exactly round, but it will have a bit a roundish shape, or a bit a kind of elongated shape. That kind of ship were quite bigger in size, and they were used for transportation and cargo. And the long ships, generally, having a long straight nose, those ships generally gather speed very fast, because you have a kind of aerodynamic shape, like aeroplanes are shaped in an aerodynamic way. The intention is that the drag, the resistance that is coming from the air is minimized. Similarly, in case of ship also, if you have rounded, still there will be a certain drag, but the water will get dispersed. Ship can propel forward, but if you have a very long and tapering nose, the ship can gather speed very fast, so that the long ship are generally used for the war purpose, and the rounded ships are generally used for the transportation of cargo. But it was not a very strict, many times this cargo shaped ship, like rounded shape ships were also used during the time of the war, as it could carry a lot of man and material. The cargo ships, they had to carry ammunition for their protection. They need to be protected from the pirate, and there are different type of ships that is mentioned by Sabasas, like in Shivaji's navy, like Gurab, Galba, Tarandi, Tarve, Shibad, and Pagar. And in that, Chitnis also has that Machwe, Babore, Titkati, and Pal. I am not able to understand this different kind of ship, though I had tried to understand. But you can just remember certain name. Different type of ships are mentioned in the by Sabasad, like that you can write. So I'll show you some of the photographs. Just a minute. Well, a little bit of information before that. Like Gura was a bigger ship, and it was having a three mast. You understand mast is a long wooden stick, and on that mast there will be a cloth. That cloth will be tied up and raised, and that cloth, the wind speed is used by that mast to propel the ship further. So it will be having a single mast or three masts, and those ships were quite bigger in size, 300 and 150 ton, and they were usually mounted with cannon. Then Tirkati is a ship having three masts. Tirkati, you can understand that, three. Then Tarande, Taru, Shivade, Macho, these were the small ships, and the very small boats were called Pagar. And it is believed that Shivaji also had merchant ships, which dealt in the salt trade. So the little bit of a different type of ship I could find out that Tirkati was a ship having three masts. Gura was a bigger ship, generally weighing 300 to 150 ton, and then there are different small ships like Tarande, Taru. Well, so I'll show you certain photographs. See, this is the cargo ship. You can see it's not exactly round, but it is having a rounded shape, and it could be quite bigger in size. Generally, the speed will be slow, but it can carry a lot of people. It's not. This is not a ship of Shivaji's time, right? But I am just trying to show you what is the difference between cargo ship and battleship. So cargo ship will be of this of that period, of course. Nowadays this is changed now, because now we have steam engine, so power is enough power. So bigger ship can also travel quite faster speed. So this is a battleship. You can see the shape. It can cut through the water and wind because of this tapering aerodynamic shape, and can gather speed very fast, and they are usually used for the battle engagement. See, this is a different type of ship that Shivaji had. See, you have this is called mast. I wanted to show you mast. See, this is a small boat, but it is having two masts. So the wind gets wind strikes against this cloth, huge cloth, and then that propels the ship forward. Well, so this is Galbat model that is there in one of the museum. You can see here Maratha Navy. The shape Galbat is generally longish type, tapering type is used for the war, and it is having two masts. This is also another type of Galbat. All right. This is Gurab, bigger ship having number of masts. This is Gurab and Pal. So you see, I could not really find out the difference, but it seems that the Pal is very very big ship. The Gurab in compared to Gurab, this is Pal and this is Gurab. This is what I found out from a book that I found on the internet. This is oar which is used by the men to propel the ship. Well, now there are certain. So we have discussed about policies, how Shivaji developed. He took the help of Portuguese and different kind of ships that he had. Now let us talk about certain engagement that Shivaji had. Siddhi was very strong on the sea, and he used to take help of the British. He will raid the Maratha territory, capture the people, and then he will take shelter with British. And this was obviously not liked by Marathas, and Shivaji, he sent Raghunath Ballar with 5 to 7,000 army, and the Marathas, they were able to conquer the coastal area of Danda Rajpuri near Zanjeera, and then they put a lot of pressure on Zanjeera. They could not conquer Zanjeera, but then treaty was signed with Siddhi. The coastal area, it remained with Marathas, and on the coast, Shivaji constructed fort, and this had put certain check on the activities of Siddhi. Siddhi has to remain confined to the Zanjeera fort. And in 1669, Shivaji attacked Zanjeera with the determination to finish Siddhi. He even tried to create dissension among the Siddhis. On that Zanjeera, there used to be different commanders who were all Siddhis. The people who came from Africa, and they used to jointly have a kind of administration of the fort. So Shivaji tried to create decision because during that period, Siddhi was lieutenant of Adil Shahi Sultan, and Adil Shahi Sultanate was not in a position to look after Siddhi or to send them reinforcement at the time of the war. So some of the Siddhis were of the opinion, as Adil Shah is no longer taking care of us, why not to join hands with Shivaji? So the head of Siddhi Fateh Khan, he was promised Jagir by Shivaji in return of surrendering of Zanjeera. But then other Siddhi, they oppose him. Other Siddhi leader, they oppose him, and they rebelled against Fateh Khan. Fateh Khan was murdered finally, and then Siddhi Sambal, he became the head of the Siddhi in that fort, and then he communicated with Mughals, and the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb, he appointed him as the Mansabdar in the Mughal military hierarchy, and promised him to support. Then Siddhi Qasim, he became Kiledar of Zanjira later on, and then Siddhi Khairiyat was given the responsibility of attacking the Maratha territory on the coastal area. Then Siddhi Qasim, with the help of the Mughal Navy came to support of Siddhi, and he conquered a certain area on the coast that was conquered by Shivaji in 1671. In 1672, Aurangzeb sent 36 ships to help Siddhi against Shivaji, and they destroyed small 500 boats of Shivaji and looted Shivaji's coastal area. And at this time, French, they sold certain lead, that is required for making of ammunition, as well as for the construction of the fort, to Shivaji for the construction of the sea fort. Then in 1675, again Shivaji made another attempt to conquer Zanjira, but he could not succeed again. And in the absence of cannon and big ship, the Maratha navy, it continued to remain weak. And then Siddhi, at the same time, he keep getting a timely help from the Mughal, from the British, as well as from the Portuguese. So that is about the engagement between Siddhi and Shivaji. Then Shivaji and Portuguese, they believed that they were master of the sea, and they made it mandatory that all the ships that is sailing in the sea should take permission from Portuguese. And they used to capture the Maratha ships if they enter into the sea without the permission from the Portuguese. And the Marathas, they retaliated by capturing the Portuguese ship. And then finally there was an agreement, and Portuguese, they agreed that we will keep giving you permission as we give it to the Mughal after paying a token amount, a little bit of amount, not a very big fee. That is about Portuguese. But later on, Portuguese during Sambhaji's period had a conflict with Marathas. We have studied it. Sambhaji has attacked Portuguese territory, and later on during Peshwa's period as well. Vasai, which was a very important fort of Portuguese, was later on conquered by the Peshwas. Well, now British, at Rajapur, which was a Maratha territory, they Shivaji gave them permission, and before that, even before Shivaji, they had their factory at Rajapur, and later on they got Bombay Island from Portuguese. That was first occupied by Portuguese, but then later on it was given as a dowry to when a Portuguese princess married to the British prince, and then British crown handed it over to the East India Company. And as they made Bombay, which was a group of island, as a very strong hold. They were quite uncomfortable with the growing naval power of the Marathas. And in order to keep the Marathas in check, the British used to support Siddhi. And Siddhi, taking shelter in Bombay, he used to raid Maratha territory. And to put check on the British, Shivaji decided to take Khanderi Island. Khanderi Island is near Bombay, so if you have a Khanderi Island under you, can construct a fort, mount a cannon. So ships that is going to Bombay will be under your range of cannon fire. And Shivaji thought that with Khanderi fort, I will be able to keep check on the movement of Siddhi and British both. And but as Marathas, they conquered Khanderi, British claim that this Khanderi island comes within the jurisdiction of Bombay and it belongs to British. And in 1672, Daulat Khan, Shivaji's men Daulat Khan and Mayanak Bhandari, they tried to take Khanderi. And some Marathas, in fact, they occupied it and they started construction of the wall. And the Britishers, they came there with the full force, they opposed, and the Marathas were defeated and they have to withdraw. Then in 1679, just 1 year before his death, Shivaji again prepared to take Khanderi island. And British, when they received the news that the Marathas in large number has reached Khanderi, and they have already started construction of the fort at Khanderi. Again, 16 September 1679, there was battle between British and the Marathas. Now, this time Shivaji was relatively better prepared. So in that engagement, some of the British officers, they lost their life, and some British ships were also captured by the Marathas. In October 1679, there was another battle between the British and the Marathas, which remained indecisive. The Marathas had one important advantage. They had a small ships which can be easily maneuvered. But the Britishers had the better artillery. They could not go very close to the British big ship because the artillery that is brought by the European was stronger, more advanced. The Marathas could not stand against the artillery fire, and the British, from their side, they continued to support Siddhi, and the war continued from September to November, almost 3 months. And But the British, they came under, they were in trouble because of the shocking tactics. The Marathas with their small boats, they will attack suddenly, and before the Britishers could retaliate, they will withdraw. The kind of guerrilla tactics they followed in the naval engagement as well. So Britishers, they were also under trouble. Marathas themselves could not stand against the artillery fire of the Britishers, so they came to the negotiation. And in 1680, there was a peace agreement between the Marathas and the British. Annaji Datto was the Maratha noble who used to negotiate between the Marathas and the British, and then the truce was signed, peace agreement was signed, but Shivaji's consent was not given. But Annaji Datto promised that I will take the consent of Shivaji, but unfortunately in 1680 Shivaji dies before he could give his consent to the agreement between the Marathas and the British. Now Shivaji seems to be achieved significant success against the British engagement, in spite of that being a European power having a more advanced artillery. Because Khanderi was close to the Maratha territory, and the supply can't be given to Khanderi for fighting the war. The Maratha ships were light and they can be easily maneuvered. The British ships were usually heavy, and they were with heavy cannon. So if the sea is very deep, in the middle of the sea, that they can do a better work. But in the shallow water near to the coast, it is a small boats which can be maneuvered and attack. They can be very effectively used, and that is the advantage of the Marathas. And the Marathas, they attacked suddenly and ran away, so they did not give any chance to the Britishers to use that big cannon. Then let us sum up now. According to Sabasat, Shivaji had two squadron 200 ships, so altogether he had 400 ships. And the people who were in Shivaji's army, Koli, Bhandari, Gabi, Bhoi, Kharvi, and Paladi Muslims. There were large number of Muslims who were employed by Shivaji in his naval forces. Then the ships, they usually carried two kind of people: gunners and ordinary soldiers. Ordinary soldiers fought with sword and bows and arrow, but the gunners were quite in demand. Because ordinary soldier, he will be useful only once you enter into the enemy ship, and the gunners, you can shoot from the distance, so they were quite in demand. But nevertheless, Maratha army, like any other army, Maratha navy, like navy of any other Indian ruler, was having certain shortcoming. Like shipbuilding was not very technically advanced. The ships, they could not sail into the deep water. They had to remain in the shallow water near to the coast, cannot go far away from the coast. Because they were not bigger in size, it could not carry supply. Artillery as well, it remained weaker point. European had a better artillery, and navy, in generally speaking, remained a common weakness of the Indian ruler, and that became one of the important reasons that the Europeans could come and conquer us. So here, the naval administration, that was the last topic in this paper, is over now. So anything, any question you have from your side, let me know.